Hello and welcome to Dateline New Haven on WNHH FM. I'm your host, Paul Bass, inviting a look behind the headlines on the stories that make our community tick. Well, it's primary election day, Democratic primaries in New Haven, primaries across the state, including some hot ones here in town. But we're not going to talk about that today. We're going to talk about jazz in New Haven with a guy who's making it happen in many forms, Nick DiMaria. Nick, welcome to Dateline New Haven. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having me, Paul. It's great to be back.
So a lot's going on with jazz around here, and you seem to be tied up in a lot of it, right? So I'm noticing jazz just popped up at a lot of venues, from the Cannon to Cafe 9 to Three Sheets to the new place at Zinc, where I caught you last week. Are we having a moment of a jazz mini resurgence in New Haven, or is that just my imagination?
Yeah, a little bit in terms of like venues. There's so many bars, restaurants, clubs, just places to play that seem to be definitely pro jazz, which is really cool. Outside of New Haven, I'm seeing venues in New London, Wallingford, Shelton,
that weren't doing it before.
That are either new or not doing it before.
Because Cafe 9 always did it.
Oh yeah, that's the standard.
But the Cannon and Zinc were not.
Well, yeah, the Cannon's only a couple of years old, and we started a series there in 2024, I think. Mm-hmm. It's one of our middle-aged series. We now have some brand new ones, and we have some.
Let's tell people who we are. The Jazz Underground is the phrase you use for jazz, mostly jams, but not only, that you stage.
Basically, it's a group I officially started in 2019, and it was and it still is focused on creating shows. The jam session element is kind of like the marketplace for jazz in the history of the music. So the jam session is always historically known as.
And does jam mean anyone comes and plays, or does it mean you pick a different group of people every time to just jam?
We specifically book different groups every time. The notion is that we are inclusive. We want to have a variety of bands. I think a lot of what happened was, when I was first coming up, I noticed that a lot of jam sessions would get dry or kind of fizzle out, and a lot of the time the common denominator was the house band was kind of the same. And musicians are human beings, and they want to feel that they have a stake, that they have the ability to participate. So rotating bands is not only good for variety and culture's sake, but it's also good for the brother and sisterhood and connection of the musicians.
So how's that different from just booking jazz bands? What makes it a jazz jam? What makes it the underground as opposed to just you're booking jazz bands?
Well, I am booking jazz groups. If it is a session, that host band is booked under the agreement that they get an opening set where they could play whatever they want. I'm always promoting original music, or maybe not as common jazz songs, standards, but lesser knowns, deep cuts, if you will. And then after that first hour, we open it up for a jam session so that anyone
can come on.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. So a lot of times, the parameters of the gig is you're going to host a session after your set.
So that's what makes it a jazz underground jam session.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. I mean, it's not like we invented that.
Yeah. But what I mean is, you do other shows that they're not called Jazz Underground. You just perform under your own band. And
oh yeah. Sometimes it's a little difficult to be separated. The more the underground works and produces shows in parallel to my own personal career, sometimes things get a little mixed up. So yeah, I do run my own band. I have my own career.
What's that called?
A lot of times it's just my name. I always love the joke that in jazz, we were too focused on the music to realize we needed to name bands. So very few bands have names. So a lot of times, the leader's name is the name of the band, like John Coltrane. Sometimes you get technical, John Coltrane Quartet, because that means a specific lineup of musicians. I do name my bands just because I'm always trying to work on different projects and stuff. So my main band, I would say, that plays my original music. That's my Skylab project.
And when I saw you, you were playing standards, weren't you?
Yeah, so that was just a quartet gig. That was what we call a pickup gig in the biz.
Well, I noticed that at one point, like before the last song, you guys were huddling about what you were going to play, right?
Yeah. Well, that's the beauty. I mean, like you can go back far back as like I think Wynton Marsalis on Mr. Rogers. He talks about as long as all the people on the bandstand know jazz songs, you could play with anybody, and that is like the beauty of this music.
And when I was thinking last Wednesday, when I was watching last Thursday, I was thinking how a cover in jazz is so different from a cover in, let's say, tribute rock bands, which is that after you get to the theme in the first verse or two, you're loyal to the framework of that song, but it's always a different song, right?
Yeah, well, I mean
you're giving everybody you, and then the guitarist and the bass and drummer, you have space to kind of go somewhere with it through improvisation.
Oh, of course. So the spirit of jazz, especially modern small group, bebop, adjacent or descendant thereof, is focused on improvisation. And in straight ahead jazz, you pick a song, whether it's a Great American Songbook standard or
Hoagie Carmichael,
Hoagie Carmichael, Irving Berlin, something like the Cole Porter, or a Herbie Hancock, Miles Davis, John Coltrane song. You're still following. You play the melody, and then you're still following the structure of the song. Yeah, the chord progression.
But still, you go pretty far off. But when you talk about bebop adjacent, kind of straight ahead jazz, would you? Is that kind of the realm you're in, and is that the realm of most what you hear when you go out and hear jazz now?
I love and hate these subgenre ideas.
But it wasn't free jazz. It wasn't.
No. And I actually, part of why I love it is because really what subgenres are they're just different movements within the greater scheme.
Like if it's got a Caribbean beat inflected.
Sure, whether it's
Horace Silver. Or
yeah. So like Horace Silver is one of the fathers of hard bop, along with Art Blakey.
See, I don't know the names, but I know he's got kind of a Caribbean rhythm on it. But it still feels like straight ahead bebop.
Oh, sure,
adjacent jazz.
And that's what it is, because Horace Silver came up playing bebop. He came up, he was probably like a little kid during the swing era, and what made his music so personal and so identifiable is that he brought that Caribbean and his West African heritage to his music. So you hear a lot of that in his songs, and that's what separates his music from, say, Herbie Hancock.
And then another variant where people kind of bring a lot of classical, then whether it's like the harpist, like Alice Coltrane, or someone isn't there, kind of a whole variant. So the reason I was asking you all this, Nick, like I'm thinking about the different times jazz seems to come with more of the consciousness and less so in our scene, whether it was the Foundry in the 70s, you had Emerson's briefly in the 80s, and Clarence Court's Jester in the 90s, or I guess that was also 80s. And there seems to be a thread that when it pops back up, it does remain in that what you call bebop adjacent, straight ahead vein, where you can still kind of feel a theme and variation throughout, that even though you have original music, it's kind of fitting with the framework of what I would say the golden age of Coltrane and Monk and everybody. Yeah. Is that accurate? If so, why does that pop up that way?
I think, I think there's certain stylings, and especially in small group, that you trace back to Charlie Parker. And that's like on the trunk of the tree, if you think about it. That jazz, Black American music tree. You've got, Louis Armstrong is part of that trunk. Duke Ellington is the trunk. Then you've got the branches. You'd argue
that Armstrong and Ellington did stay more composed, even though there was improvisation. Wasn't it Parker who got a flying?
Well, Parker created the bebop language, basically. Yeah. So Parker, but I would keep Parker on the trunk because everything since him, it can be traced in.
Even Coltrane was sort of like the next Parker, right? That's the influence, but he had kind of a warmer tone to it.
Oh yeah, before Coltrane's more spiritual endeavors, I mean, he was, there's all these great stories of him on the phone with Sonny Rollins, and they're playing stuff for each other, and they were both just copying Dexter Gordon and Charlie Parker, and Dexter was a colleague of Parker's, if you will, so you always trace it back. And like right now, the main, I would say what's really prominent is just this term is overused, but the fusion of all different styles. So, hip hop is now making its way into jazz more commonly than it was, because you have now multiple generations musicians
Well, could
who
you
came
argue
up.
that was some of the way Grover Washington brought? It wasn't called hip hop then, but it was kind of an R&B. Would you agree that that's sort of the way he fused that back in its day?
Oh, sure. I mean, Grover Washington is just, the very artist. Like, I'm thinking of like
Or a
Marquise
weather
Hill.
report? Okay.
Yeah, like right now, like I was telling you before we started, I saw Marquise Hill's band at Newport, and Marquise's music incorporates a lot of hip hop and music that he has, I think it's fair to say he has admitted influenced him outside of jazz. So that stuff's starting to pop up in other artists' music. Grover Washington, Marquise Hill, they're almost kind of fulfilling roles of their era in this. But again,
And
it's
yet there's
all
this
connected.
right, this is constancy. You're talking about the trunk of the shoe with Charlie Parker, and that's kind of again, if it's not true, but if it is true, that it kind of bops up. It kind of we get waves of it, and people are more interested in hearing it again. But it still has that basic sound to it. Is that anything like the? And this could be way overthinking it. Is anything like this re-embrace of vinyl? Or the re-embrace of books, but not among the whole population, right? The world is going in a much different direction, and there's this embrace of authenticity it's sort of retro, but combined with modern ideas that seems to be weaving through a subculture that's big enough to have more people buying books than it's fewer people. More people buying vinyl, but it's fewer people. Is that anything, or am I just overthinking it? Like, is jazz going on a wave that
I think jazz
flows?
I think jazz is a very malleable and living entity in our culture, world culture, and despite Grover Washington's or Marquise Hill's personal touches on their music, at the end of the day, if Marquise walked into a New Haven Jazz Underground Jazz Jam, he could still play the jazz vernacular with any musician in the room who's able to as well, because we're going back to that trunk spot that Charlie Parker holds. We can call a tune.
But I'm even thinking of the audience. Is there
and then I think, man, I mean, not to get like too out there, but I think people are kind of tired of not being able to hold things.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, and so you are seeing a resurgence in vinyl and books and whatnot. And I think despite jazz being one of the it's certainly not popular music, and I think it's safe to say the people who listen to it very in a very dedicated manner. So getting a record is kind of connected in that sense, because you're already looking at a group of people who take the time to slow down and listen to the actual song that's on. And vinyl just reasserts that.
So now you said you did your first one. How many you've done 15 albums?
Something like that, yeah.
But
17?
you just did your first one on vinyl, Skylab. That's your most recent one.
Yeah.
And that's the name of your ensemble and the name of the album.
Yeah.
Why did you do your first vinyl?
Oh, well, I've been on vinyl before. I
thought you said it was your first. No.
It was it's my first under my own name, but I've been on releases that have been released on vinyl, other bands, and so on and so forth. I'm a vinyl collector myself, and so
I see. I don't have enough of an ear to notice the difference. People say it's not just that the imperfections might make it sound more authentic. There's actually something fuller and warmer about the sound than either CDs or streaming.
See, I still love CDs. I still listen to digital music. I think a lot of people. I'm certainly in this category. I like listening to vinyl records and even CDs because it forces you to participate in the process of listening to the actual song itself,
rather than quickly hitting.
Yeah,
YouTube
I mean, when I,
Spotify.
not to, this is gonna crack me up myself. But when I was coming up, CDs were still like a thing, and when I went to Borders or
and some
Cutlers,
people were pissed about CDs, saying they made the sound flatten, that it wasn't enough of the warmth and the fullness.
But again, when I 20, 30 years ago, you bought a CD, you had that physical object, and so you took the time to listen to it from beginning to end. Now it's streaming, and although streaming is you can argue that there is a facet of it that's like a beautiful thing. You have access to all this music,
and you're reaching newer audiences,
and you're reaching
those connections across genres. With
exactly. In many ways, streaming has leveled the playing field. And you can argue like the ways artists are treated, but what I'm getting at is it's so easy to just queue up 30 songs and not pay attention to the one that's playing. You know, like you'll have a song playing, you'll have So What by Miles Davis playing on your headset, and you're looking at the app and you're hitting the cue button and you're just queuing up all these songs and you're missing the very song that's playing. So what I love about putting on a record, and I think a lot of people feel this way too, is I'm listening to this song and then I'm going to listen to the song after it, because that's how it is. I love putting my phone down.
And it also makes the artist think differently, correct? Like when we were coming up, albums were concept. As you're saying, there was an order to them that was very deliberate. Bruce Springsteen or someone might keep 4 tracks that were really good but don't fit with the wholeness of what they're trying to express with the album. Whereas now everything is sort of its own entity, each track, right?
Well, you know, there's still artists, I think, across all genres that will release singles versus albums, or maybe an album.
But can they get you to listen in that order?
I mean, I think so, yeah.
When you did Skylab, were you thinking of an order?
Not an order.
Holy crap, Skylab. Do you mean the thing in 1977 that was dropping from the sky?
Well, yeah, so to speak, yeah. So when I was a kid, I loved. I still love astronomy and NASA and space. I think the concept of like a whole civilization focusing on a goal is really cool.
But what does Skylab refer to?
Skylab is a cool word. It's a cool word.
So I was 17 years old working for a daily paper, and I went to downtown White Plains to ask people if Skylab was going to fall on Merrimack Avenue, the main street. So because everyone was wondering where this thing from the sky was going to fall.
Yeah. So I picked Skylab for a couple of reasons. One, I found the name itself very inspirational in the sense of you know, it has this reaching beyond idea. So
for you, it's more like you're creating in the sky and experimenting.
Yeah, you know, the greater consciousness kind of thing. But I'm aware of what Skylab was. Skylab's run historically is you know, before my time. You know, I was born in the early 80s. So I knew what Skylab was, and I would see pictures of it as a kid. I had no idea that it like technically crashed. And what's funny,
where did it fall, by the way? Because they didn't fall on White Plains.
Yeah, it fell in the ocean or something, right? Yeah. but you know, when people say, you know, it's usually with older audiences, they'll say, you know, Skylab crashed, right? And I usually just say the same thing. I just respond with rock and roll. You know, that's really. And
why did you put it on vinyl?
I really wanted to finally do that, and the songs that are on Skylab were kind of like a culmination of many years of writing, performing, band leading, and I was just kind of like, this record's going to be special. This is a culmination of what I've been doing the last 20 years. So let's put it on a format that is fun. The kind of the most cosmic element of it is my longtime partner, musical partner, Andrew Kasiba. It was actually the last recording we ever made together.
What do you mean? What happened?
He passed away in April of 2026.
Oh wow!
So Andrew, I think of, you know, the 15 recordings I have, Andrew's probably on 13 of them. So,
and how does your own music differ from the music you play by other people?
Well, you know, I mean, you when it comes to another composer's song, I still try to think of how do I want to interpret it, but I always try to keep the general idea of the spirit of the composition.
And how often do you play the originals out, and how often do you play?
It depends on the gig. So the gig you saw was like standards, because those are musicians I've worked with for you know, years and years. And sometimes you find yourself in combination with them, sometimes you don't. So everyone just knows jazz standards, so it's just a way to play that. But last Friday, a different kind of gig at a different kind of venue, a venue where you can play more original music. That was at Three Sheets.
Oh, cool. Yeah, and how was it received?
Pretty well, I think. I've sold half of the record, so.
Oh, cool.
So I think.
What was the record? Was the Skylab record?
Yeah, so we were playing music from Skylab, and I'm actually working on the next record to follow it. So.
What's that going to be?
I haven't decided yet. I'm still brainstorming.
Can we take a little break and listen to you playing last weekend at Zinc for a few minutes, and then we'll come back and also talk about your work at Truman School. Okay, listen to WNHH-FM, Dateline, New Haven. Nick DiMaria is our guest, a trumpeter, band leader, and organizer of Jazz Underground shows And here's what he sounded like last Thursday night at Zinc. That's a Nick DiMaria quartet, right? Playing at Zinc this past Thursday, where there's jazz every Thursday night now.
As far as I know, yeah. It's a recent series, but
well, I was watching that. I really enjoyed those pieces. I was looking at, and tell if this is accurate or not, is I felt like with every solo, it started out very grounded in the theme, and that every verse you kind of came back and pulled it a little further away, that you're kind of going deeper into it with each, taking steps further and further away from the beginning, but not all at once with each verse. I don't know if that's true.
Well, every improviser is trying to tell a story. So you don't let it all out at once, and you try to let the idea that the stream of consciousness take you. So that's what I'm trying to think of when I'm improvising. That, and trying to combine those who influenced me into. And
let's talk about who influenced you. You grew up in Waterbury and then Chester. How'd you get started in jazz, Nick?
Well, yeah, I'm originally from Waterbury. I grew up in Cheshire. And like any suburban kid in the 90s, I got into ska music because I certainly wasn't going to listen to the bands my parents were trying to get me to. So it took me a long time.
Were they jazz fans?
My parents were definitely eclectic music fans, but they were trying to get me to listen to Chicago and Tower of Power.
They had Tower, so you had the horns.
Yeah, well, that's why they were. I laugh about it because they were really doing a great job of trying to connect what they listened to and what and the instrument I chose. But
Well, so when did you choose the instrument and why? Trumpet player.
I first wanted to play the trumpet. I think I was 4 years old.
Really?
Yeah, I
love those stories.
Yeah, I saw the music video to "You Can Call Me Al" by Paul Simon,
nice
and Chevy Chase is playing the trumpet. But like it's like a joke. Yeah. But you don't know that when you're a little kid. So I just thought it was cool. I really just couldn't wait to join the band.
It's this thing how certain instruments speak to different people.
I guess so. When I got into 5th grade and you could choose an instrument, I knew I was going to pick the trumpet. I wanted to play the trumpet. And it's wild. I was 35 years old when I found out my dad played. I mean, not professionally, but he played a lot. And he played in these Italian social clubs and stuff.
What instrument?
Trumpet.
What?
Yeah.
He never told you?
I mean, I knew he played like a little bit, but
He watched you playing trumpet. He didn't say, "I played. Here's how I play."
I mean, he told me he played a little bit. That's it.
And he was a cop, right?
Yeah. But he played way when I was in my mid 30s. I found out he played way more than I thought he did.
But you didn't notice that as a kid, or he stopped playing?
He stopped playing.
So you picked up the trumpet 5th grade. When did it develop? Did it immediately become a jazz instrument? They were having because if you're thinking about it, Tower Power, and especially Chicago, had a lot of jazz in it.
Sure.
The horn section, Chicago. That's sort of what they were bringing to it. The kind of not quite prog rock, but like a little more complicated, like Blood, Sweat, and Tears. A little more
Well, I mean, I was so hard headed. I didn't want to listen to that stuff because that's what my parents wanted. Were trying to get me to listen to. So. But like I said, I came up in the 90s, ska music was everywhere, especially in Connecticut. So that was like the moment I remember saying, and I love this memory just because it's so ridiculous. But it was like, I first heard like Real Big Fish, and I was like, oh man, trumpets can be in a rock band. So at least I got there by myself.
Which your parents are trying to tell you about Chicago, but you weren't listening.
Exactly.
So rock was your first music.
Yeah, rock. And then, as I got to I started playing in a drum corps, and I was getting into garage bands and stuff, and but then one thing led to another. I was playing in jazz band in school. Anytime I could play the trumpet instead of doing something else, as the years went on,
it's more complicated to learn the jazz, right? I mean,
jazz was tough.
A lot more chord progressions.
And sure. Yeah. I wasn't prepared for
Did jazz take a hold of you at any point? Like, how did that become your direction?
I think playing the trumpet took hold of me, and jazz is such a horn, or like there's so many like famous trumpet players in jazz. So when I first heard Lee Morgan, that's what hooked me on jazz.
How old were you?
Probably 14. I heard the Sidewinder.
So you're still young when you were
I was like a freshman. I was like a freshman in high school when I first heard the Sidewinder, and I was like, "Oh, that's cool," because he's doing like all this bluesy stuff. He's playing essentially what would lead to funk music. So it was easy for my ear at that young age to grasp that and like it. I get sometimes I'm jealous of these musicians who are like, oh, when I was 10, I was transcribing Charlie Parker and Miles Davis or Clifford Brown and stuff, and I'm like, oh no, man, that's
Charlie Parker, that's macho. If you
those guys were just not doing that was not on my radar at that age, and so it's just wild for me to.
So
think.
When did jazz become your identity with the music?
Probably when I was like 17, when I decided when I was getting good enough in school bands and stuff, and I was in a punk ska band that was touring and putting out albums and stuff. I was like, oh, I think I want
17.
Yeah, I was like, I think I want to do this, and I was starting to like gig like in my town. Like I was getting, and it could be anything. I would play like taps for a ceremony, or my band would get like a gig at somebody's picnic, so we'd play for an audience that wasn't like the VFW hall and the punk kids and stuff. So I was getting mileage on the horn, and then I was like, I'm going to be a music teacher. That's a good route. That seems to combine the things that like I thought I was going to be a teacher when I was a kid, and so being a music teacher kind of made sense. So I did that. But then when I got to college, I ended up switching my degrees, and I had opportunities to pursue a performance degree and get my education degree later. Western Connecticut State University.
A lot of good music seems to come out of Western Connecticut. Also, the bluegrass musicians around here seem to come out of Western Connecticut.
Oh yeah. When I was at WestCon, it was such a hang. I went to school with such incredible musicians. Most of them I'm still.
And you've made a career out of being a teacher and a musician ever since.
Yeah. WestCon was really cool back then. I was one of the last people to finish this opportunity, but they would let you basically like the performance degree and the ed degree were the same until the last 2 years. So I finished a jazz performance degree, and then they let me go back the fall after I graduated, re-enroll, and then I could do all the education stuff. So I was like, oh, I could delay adulthood by 2 years
but also get a marketable.
Yeah. So I did that. And so I got, when I got out of school in 2008, yeah, I got my first teaching job. So,
And now you've been a teacher at Truman School in New Haven in the Hill for 15 years.
I've been at Truman for this will be year 13.
So that was pretty
year
early in your career. So you were still in your 20s.
Yeah, I was 24. Yeah.
And you've stayed there.
Well, I started out, I was teaching in Waterbury, and then in 2014, I got hired at Truman, and I've been at Truman ever since.
Wait, so that's 12 years. Yeah, 13. Okay.
Yeah.
And so what's it like teaching? What do you do? What grades and what do you teach them?
I teach K to 8 general music, which I love. I found out kind of just, I thought I was going to be a band teacher, and that never worked out. When I got out of school, the recession just hit. They were taking full-time jobs and splitting them into threes and quarters, and so it was hard to get a job. So the only job I got hired in November of 2008, and it was supposed to be a means to an end, and it was a general music position. And then when I got to Truman, it was also a general music position, but I had years of experience, so I think that's how I got that job. But then but along the way, I realized that it's a subject I love to teach.
So what happens in class?
So my class is, it's the elements of music. So I'm teaching them rhythm, melody, pitch, timbre.
Did you have them do it
history.
hands-on?
Oh yeah, my program's very percussion kind of focused, especially with the influx of EL students. It's way not only easier for them, but easier for me, easier for the class if we're focused on drumming.
Now, what do you mean? What does it mean? Influx of Yale students?
EL, I'm sorry, English learners.
Oh, English.
Yeah. So my school.
Oh, that's right. Truman has a lot of like Afghanis, right?
We have a sizable Afghani population. I think we're more than 50% Hispanic or Spanish speaking.
But what a change in the Hill,
yeah. And it's a great school to work at.
And then
I'm still there because I love it.
And what do you do with the older kids as compared to the younger kids? They're
so
also
like
drumming?
the little kids are singing and learning, Mi Re Do and all that stuff. And as they get older, I do the recorders and I do bucket drums. And the older kids, it's progressive. So basically, the older kids are almost doing the same thing as the little kids, but it's just on a more advanced level. So like
polyrhythms and stuff.
Yeah. There's a lot of drumming. Like I said, I do one of those bucket drum lines. That's a hit. That's you
ever play trumpet for them?
All the time. Yeah, I keep a horn in my under my desk.
What happens when you play?
It blows their mind. I think.
And how often do you do that?
Whenever, But I think
is it a way like if they're getting too antsy, do it to kind of chill them out?
No, not necessarily. Sometimes it's to just show them. I think kids, really respond when you tell them a bunch of stuff and then you do it. I think that's just human.
And do you have a band there too, or anything?
No, we had a school band. It was taught by another teacher, but he's no longer at the school. So we haven't had. COVID really messed things up. Like I used to have a chorus,
and
where I played.
Do that now.
I think with during COVID, we just had a lot of challenges, and then which led to like a staffing challenge, but then like. For me, what I realized was right after COVID, nobody wanted to sing. I couldn't get a couple of people, the older kids, what I'm saying.
Wow.
So I just think the effects of
isolation.
Being shy, wearing masks, that sort of thing. Yeah. I think it was, I think it just really took its toll. And interest wise, it was easier, especially in 21, 22, when we'd still be masked. It was easier to drum on something with a mask on than to like sing. So I salute any chorus teacher who was on the job. That does seem like
you forget COVID. How our lives are turned upside down. It's been 4 years since you masked, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. We were.
Is it still hard getting back to normal? You said you don't have a chorus still.
Because I've shifted my curriculum so much, I don't think it's.
And what do you like better, performing or teaching?
I think I love performing just a slight bit more than teaching.
Like
I love. Don't get me wrong. I love teaching. I go. I go to work every day, excited for the job. But
that's nice.
It's definitely the more stressful of the two.
And is it accurate that since you've been in Truman, that population shift has taken place even more? Maybe Hispanic already. The Hill was getting a lot more Hispanic, but the influx of Asian.
Yeah, I think New Haven's just another, it's just a city in Connecticut. So for me, it's just going to change with the times, and we're going to see different groups. What I think was, I was pointing this out, I think last school year, was when we have students who come from Afghanistan, Pakistan, and say they're not too strong in English, but they're in classes with Spanish speaking students. I've seen a lot of Afghani students or Pakistani students speaking Spanish. And so I was saying, we're going to have in like 20 years, we're going to have these multilingual residents of the city, and the cultures are most likely, if history has taught us anything.
Does it work in reverse at all? The Spanish kids pick up any Urdu or whatever they say?
I think, they teach each other stuff all the time, because kids are like that, and what I love is the notion that, not to get too personal, but the notion that we are celebrating this, this American notion that it's like 1 foot in where you come from and 1 foot where you are. And for me, of Italian descent, like my dad, never spoke Italian to us because he only spoke it at home, and that was it. They didn't speak it outside their house. There was this, the assimilation meant something different back then. I think we're moving in a direction where assimilation means like, no, you hold on to your culture,
celebrating,
like what you're celebrating. Yeah. So I always tell the kids, I'm like, oh man, don't ever forget where your family comes from. That's a beautiful thing.
Have the kids introduced you to any music you weren't familiar with?
I usually ask them about like music of where they're from, but like it's how kids are like that's like, to them, that's like what their grandparents are playing in the house. So they're always
just like you and
exactly. It's the exact same thing. Yeah,
so now you have a space between D and Maria.
It's supposed to be, yeah.
But there's a guy who doesn't, who has the same name. He's younger than you are, and he's also a musician who's played like Disney. And how did that about? You ever meet this guy?
We talked via text a couple of times. It just goes to show that the universe has a serious sense of humor, and there's a. And in some ways it kind of keeps me grounded in the sense that like I can't slack off in this. Like there is literally someone who has my name and plays my instrument
except he doesn't have the space between D and Maria.
Well, that was the thing. Like
that's right. He's a trumpeter and he plays jazz.
Exactly. Right? So I told him, I was like, look, man, I am like 12 years older than him. I was like, I have the beard. Like, let's keep it simple.
You guys should do a concert together.
I know we should. So we know mutual people, which is really weird, but yeah, it's a reminder that like the fire is always under my butt, because if I slack off, like someone can literally take the persona I've worked towards and run away with it.
So Nick DiMaria, tell it what you're up to next. You got another year of teaching. Anything new in the classroom this year?
I mean, the same as usual. Just teaching. Following my curriculum.
You work on a new album of original material.
Yep, I'm working on a follow up to Skylab, and so basically, the juggling of teaching, performing, and running the underground is.
Now, running Jazz Underground, is that like an organization?
It's actually an LLC now.
Yeah. LLC, not a 501c3. You think you're gonna make
money? At the risk of ruffling some feathers, I worked for a nonprofit that produced jazz. That's actually how I got to start the underground. They fired me.
Which one was that?
It was Jazz Haven. And so I worked with them until 2018. I left that organization, and one of the most frustrating elements, and I mean, this is just the truth. One of the most frustrating elements of work of that experience was, sometimes there's time sensitive things. And if not everyone is committed to showing up and listening to what you have on the table, you can miss the opportunity, or you just move too slow. And so when I started out in 2010 as a showrunner, if you remember the Outer Space Club. So Steve Rogers, who owned that club, he knew me since I was a teenager. So when, he said to me one day, this is back in like 2010, he goes, I need something on Sundays. Do you want to do jazz? I said, sure. So I booked Sundays at the Outer Space until 2016, probably.
A showrunner, someone who books?
Yeah, I was like producing shows and whatnot. And basically that was the underground started that day. I was booking, promoting, producing concerts. And so I got tapped to work with Jazz Haven, and then I ended up back independently. And when I went independently, I just didn't want to stop the work that I've always been doing. So, excuse me. So I started the Jazz Underground. But and people say like, how come it's not a nonprofit? It's really just I want to be able to just do things quickly. It's just this music and the because like here's another thing too. The underground is focused on the day-to-day musician, the working musician. A lot of times we get tied up in a festival mindset, and a festival could be a weekend or a week long. But what happens the other 51 weeks of the year?
Yeah.
And that's our focus, is providing performance opportunities for musicians all year long. And you need to be nimble to do that.
And remind me, why is this the first album of yours of your own material that's on vinyl? Why did you decide to go vinyl?
Oh, I just thought it was cool, and it's just become special because my bandmate passed away. So the next one will probably just be digital. But it's been fun, having a record, seeing it on shelves like in LP format is pretty cool.
And what do you got? What gigs you got coming up over the next month?
So personally, I've got like I was saying up at the top of this interview, there's a bar in Shelton called the Gilded Whitlocks. I'll be there this Thursday. I'll be at Conspiracy Bar on Friday. That's August 14th.
Where's that?
Middletown. One of the best places in Connecticut. Yeah, I love playing Conspiracy. So I'll be there. Saturday I'm at Brass and Bone, which is in Norwalk, which is like a legit club, like, stage, supper club kind of vibes. It's super cool there. Multiple acts in a day, which is nice. And then tonight, the Jazz Underground is hosting trombonist David Gibson, who's coming up from New York City. So that'll be an incredible show.
4 gigs in 4 nights.
Yeah, pretty much.
Nights.
Almost.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, it's summertime.
All right, and the work is hard.
Yeah.
Well, I've really loved chatting with you, Nick DiMaria. Keep up all the great work in
Thanks
the
for having me,
classroom
Paul.
and on stage.
Thank you.
Thanks to Harry Drost behind the controls. So check out Nick DiMaria. Where do you find Skylab?
Just check me out, nickdimariatrumpet.com, at Nick DiMaria Music, and if it's a Skylab gig, you will know because it will say Nick DiMaria.
And how about the LP or the album? How do they get that? Or
you can find that on, just Google Nick DiMaria Skylab, and it's on Bandcamp exclusively.
Oh, why is that?
Because it took me like a decade to earn a penny on Spotify. So I believe in artists being paid. So
all right.
Yeah, so
right,
it's on Bandcamp.
A lot of thought behind what you do. Thanks to Harry Drost behind the controls. We're going to take it out. The Afro-Semitic Experience performing I Wish I Knew How It'd Feel to Be Free from the group CD, A Plea for Peace. This is Paul Bass inviting you to fly free with us all day and all night long at WNHH, New Haven's home for community radio.